Good morning. When I lived with my Uncle Victor Charles in Encino, California, I always wondered where he went. And when he came home, he just went into his bedroom and slept. Then, when he came out of his bedroom, he'd walk into the den and lay on his back on the sofa and starting reading his scripts. Later on, when I was older, then I knew where he went. And he was driving into states to speak his poetry for others. Heavenly intervention must have saved Victor Charles from dropping into the abyss where all Hollywood box office poisoned actors go to cry and melt away. It wasn't going to be just an average year, but it turned out to be a fantastic year for him. The newspapers were printing something like this: Victor Buono is fabulous in Tartuffe, in his new stage production of Moliere's play Tartuffe at the Comedia Theater in Palo Alto, California. Victor Charles turned back to the theater stage for comfort. On March 28, 1965, Victor Charles was attending a high school drama festival at the Valley College in Van Nuys, California, with many other actors and actresses and writers. He was one of the judges that year, and it must have enlightened him all the more. Victor Charles began reaching out to the public in 1965, after the debacle of The Strangler, not just for money, but he wanted to see their eyes and hear their laughter. On May 23, 1965, Victor Charles was performing in his one-man show of remembrance of things past at the Le Grand Theater. It was produced by his agent, Jerry Rosen, and his show included the classic works of writers of Thurber, Dylan Thomas, Yeats, Shakespeare, and many more for him to recite to his waiting audiences. On May 25, 1965, my mother Hilda went to see and hear Victor Charles's solo performance of Remembrance of Things Past at the Hollywood Le Grand Theater, and she later wrote this letter to him, saying, "Dear Victor, I'm writing to thank you again for the wonderful dinner and the chance to see your performance. Although you told the audience not to go away with any message, I felt strongly that I knew you better, not only as an actor, but as a brother-in-law. I find it hard to express my innermost feelings with anyone, and especially with anyone of Lou's family. I don't understand the constant inconsistencies which you all seem to possess concerning family, friends, major issues, etc. I find it difficult to communicate with you all. That's why I hope I can convey my thoughts to you so that you know they are sincere. Listening to you the other night, I was sensitive to how much of yourself was involved in the dialogue. I must tell you, I never know when you are yourself or when you're on. Also, and this is the main reason for the letter, I noted the one consistent thing about you, which I have observed in your public appearances, your sense of morality, whether genuine or you select image builder. I feel it's genuine. It's something I must tell you I admire greatly. Since you are exposed to so many people, your ideas can carry influence. Your youth and accomplishments can inspire many, as I'm sure they do. To choose the standards you have is a tribute to you. In a world where personal individualism is hard to attain, I hope you are able to grow in your convictions and become an instrument of conscience in our society. I'm not calling you a saint. There are many things about you I don't understand or agree with, but you have a gift that can be used for good and bad, and I feel you're trying for the good guys. Thanks again for a universally entertaining show. Although you are Catholic and I am Methodist, maybe our mutual God bless you. Your sister-in-law, Hilda. When Victor Charles received my mother Hilda's May 25th letter, it took him a short while to respond, and he did on June 10th, 1965, saying, Dear Hilda, I have not answered your letter simply because I did not know what to say. To try and put on paper the thoughts which entered my mind after reading your note would only embarrass both of us, and anyway, it would end up sounding like an old "can you top this" script. All I can and shall say is that I have hoped for closer contact with you for the past 15 years. For the reasons you mentioned, and others equally as important and unimportant, we have never really gotten together. I have deeply missed knowing you, and for lack of space to list the reasons, let me simply say that it was because you have a glittering sense of humor. I base all friendships on that sense, and come to think of it, I lose a lot of contacts for that reason. But I'm drifting. I suppose I can sum it all up by saying, thank you. Better late than never. And I pray that this is a start of friendship between us. With the great big six-pack of love, respect, and gratitude, I remain your insane, inane, implausible in-law. P.S. When considering what I say and do, a good rule of the thumb is, when in doubt, laugh. He's probably just performing. The communication between Victor Charles and my mother Hilda is an honest showing of the lack of their dialogue over the years, and it also reveals the same lack within our family members. When I lived with my Uncle Victor Charles, he was often quiet and very thoughtful, and when I was growing up with my mother Hilda, she hardly shared any of her deep feelings with me as well. Victor Charles and my mother were very intelligent, thoughtful, and kind, but both held back their inner feelings and they held their private thoughts from others. Father John R. Hayhern heard of Victor Charles's reciting the words of William Shakespeare, Yeats, and Dylan Thomas to excited audiences throughout America. And he probably looked up into the sky and said, "Thank you, Lord. I knew one day Victor would help your children." After going through hell and criticism of the Strangler, I know my Uncle Victor Charles spent many nights searching deeply in his heart and soul of how he could turn those horrible days around when he feared he lost everything he had already built in his early years. I, too, believe Agent Jerry Rosen helped him through those dark and struggling days of moving forward and showing empathy to audiences and making him all the more human to them.